All right. Shalom, everyone. Salama. Welcome to Q2UA discussions. Sorry for running late. Um, had a couple things going on. This is what I was fighting against this morning. I was fighting against AI. This is my chat GPT. This is what I use in terms of like getting thumbnails. And I said this. Create a picture of an African American man using a computer and an African man using a computer that are communicating to one another when a pair of shadowy hands try to disconnect the connection. So this timed out. So I guess that's going to be the African American, and then this just stayed. It didn't do the work. So I was primed and queued up, ready to re-engage, and it just didn't do it. So why is that important? Why is it so important that even the tools AI aren't trying to respond in terms of a connection, African American connection? Why is that? It's on purpose. It's on purpose when you are seeing how they are trying to get us to do everything else except for trying to come together on the continent. And as we are moving forward, because the work isn't slowing down, it's actually moving forward in terms of what we see happening in areas of Africa, particularly the Sahel region. And now, when we're seeing all this, we're seeing citizenship. And this is something that we may not necessarily outright experience, and we don't really outright experience that. But let me tell you how the chickens are kind of coming home to roost in the context of folks, these countries abandoning their participation in francophone nations, their participation in trying to look towards their European counterparts. I don't want to say counterparts, but their European colonial masters is actually the right word. And now we're in the age of visas and visa requirements, which is good, which is a great thing because once you had that age where everybody could just go through willy nilly, including our own folks, there's no accountability. People would overstay their visas, people would do all sorts of crazy things. And usually, when you overstay visas like that, you're usually getting ready to do something illegal. That's just how it goes because you're not operating legally in the capacity of the country. But why is all this going on and happening? Because in order to understand how Europe works, we always say Q2UA, Quest 2 Night Africa, Q2UA. Yeah, that's all fine and dandy. But in order to know how Africa works, you have to understand how Europe works because Europe is the biggest influencer of Africa. It's a bigger influencer than China or Russia because it has a colonial grip that has killed people, deleted people, mutilated people, genocided people, you name it. Any type of humanitarian crime or disaster or anything else, you name it, and they've done it in Africa. And that's not being hyperbolic. That's not being over ambitious in terms of an attack. And honestly, it's not an attack if it's actually something that's historically accurate. I hate when people say, "You're attacking me. Did it happen? Yes or no?" Yes, it happened. Well, and it's not an attack. And now people are sick of the mind games and the mental manipulations, the mental hoops and the mental exercises that manipulative characters love to do when they don't want to be held accountable to the truth. And now the requirement is they're being held accountable on all ends and all spectrums and all fronts. So don't think that this economy is collapsing because the economy is just collapsing. There's nothing going on and it's just the dollar. No, the economy is collapsing because a lot of people don't want to hear the lies anymore. And I deal with that every single day. I deal with that in my capacity as a teacher. I deal with that with other teachers that are trying to figure out how they can literally retire in the next 3 months and be able to have their funds. And I kind of look at them in disbelief, like, you know what? In a profession of being a teacher, the lack of information and the lack of being informed is astounding. I always had thought in my scholarly profession that being a teacher meant that, you know what, you actually understand what you're teaching so you can understand life. And the more you understand life, guess what? The better a teacher you are because you can provide high levels of understanding. Level one, level two, level three, level four, level five, right? You give an understanding. So when our people that are naturally curious ask the questions, we can at least get them in the right room and not throw them down a hallway of misunderstanding and really lies that our people experience every single day. Because the inconvenient truth is, our people would rather, and not our people, I'm going to say generally speaking, most people, Most people would rather have them tell them something than explain to them the reality of the situation. And it becomes convenience. And then convenience is really laziness because we've been allowed to be scholastically, mentally, academically lazy. We have. We have devices that say, hey, Siri. And you don't even know if Siri's giving you the right answer. On Covenant Awakenings, I'm going to be promoting a website. I haven't really done the beta testing just yet, but in the next couple of days on my channel, I will be promoting a website that gives a slice and dice of the truth based off of historical evidence. See, everybody wants to understand a convenient answer. But guess what? Convenient answers mean that, you know what? They're usually lies. Because then when you navigate through the answer and you start to look at the answer and you start to see that, well, where did this answer come from? And you see that it's a singular source. That singular source is a person that has their own demographic background that is conducive to a background that promotes their understanding of things and not the actual physical evidence. Then you start to drill through and you start to realize, oh, they just lied. But it's okay that they lie because you want to know why? Because they realize that people aren't going to really check folks for their lies. They're just going to say, whatever, we throw it on out there, and you want to know what? They're going to eat it up. And I thank the Most High for this time that our people are not subscribing to the lies. I'm teaching these young men, and these young men, look, yeah, they have some behavioral issues, and I understand they have behavioral issues. Would you not have behavioral issues if you knew that everything around you was a lie? I certainly would. If you knew that everything around you really doesn't matter, I certainly would. If you knew that you literally only had less than maybe a couple of weeks before things go absolutely crazy, I would be a demon on wheels. I don't need to care about this. Why? Man, I know who I am because I know who I am. Guess what? This whole thing doesn't matter. You don't matter. You don't matter. You certainly don't matter. Can you blame them? Because that's what a lot of our people, and that's how a lot of our people have felt in this awakening. And I laugh because I have to laugh because I understand exactly where they're coming from because just realistically, that was my thought process 5, 6 years ago. Who cares? It doesn't matter. But then I thank the Most High that I'm in this arena because I realize that no, it does matter. It's just that the guiding of how we reach our young men and young women is that what they are experiencing here now, and let's just face it, our captivity. Let's just understand why we say what we say because it's based on the word, and the word is a foundation, and that foundation is a standard, and that standard is what's breaking them. It's not breaking us, it's making us. They're breaking, we're making. They're breaking when they're trying to say, we need you all to come up and you all need to fight, you all need to take a stand. Says who? Everybody tries to engage with them about taking a stand. No, you don't need to engage in anything. Simple question. I'll get on out there, but first, you want to know what? Before April 5th, go ahead and everybody that's planning on going on out there on April 5th. Well, today is March 28th. Go ahead, send a letter, send an email, send a tweet, send something to your congressman, your local official, your senator, your governor, and even the president, and let them know, can we please pay reparations to African Americans who have been formerly enslaved, whose lineage have been formerly enslaved in this nation. Oh, and by the way, since we want to use people of color, please also be a leading voice for all nations where the transatlantic slave trade has hit. And therefore, we're not a hypocritical people that are just asking for things for us and not thinking of others. You see that standard there? Oh, you see how that was articulated? Quid pro quo. It's not fairness. They don't do fairness. It's never fair. Because fairness means that you actually have to do something that they've never done before here. You actually have to act righteously. You actually have to internalize and you have to say, how did I get there? Why did I get there? And what was being done? What can I do? I just can't ask, and then keep what? Kicking you in the mouth? Why can't you stand up for me? Why can't you protest for me? I could, but you done kicked me so much in the mouth that my jaw's busted open and it's hanging halfway on the floor, so I can't even formulate a word anymore. I ain't got no teeth left. I need reconstructive surgery. You gonna help me out with that one? You gonna pay my surgical bills? You gonna pay my physical therapy? You gonna pay for my speech therapy? You gonna pay to make me whole again? No. So why are you requiring something of me that I just cannot physically or spiritually do? Because I've realized that I I finally realized that my jaw's broke. I finally realized that my teeth are gone, that my tongue is all messed up. And now here they are. Here they are. And they're in the worst predicament of their lives. And they really are. As I get back to you, again, as I was running late, because I'm not going to be long, I do have some things going on because I have to go out of town tomorrow. You know, things pop on up when you got kids. That's just how it goes. As I was explaining this to you all early on Covenant Awakenings on that channel, and now you're starting to see this on Q2UA. Britain and France sending military teams to Ukraine to deter Putin. To deter Putin for what? To deter Putin for what? They already have a ceasefire that's in place, and they already have a deal that they're getting ready to cut with the United States. Do you see this? British and French military teams will be deployed to Ukraine in coming days. Macron has confirmed the delegation for the UK and France will be sent to work within Ukrainian armed forces as part of a reassurance force. You know what that means? They got cut out of the deal. Trump and Putin balkanized Ukraine, and the EU is mad. He made the announcement but about the military delegation to Ukraine, but said the decision is not unanimous. Other countries in the EU are not happy. And such a force would also not be a substitute for any peacekeeping soldiers on the ground maintaining any ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Do you see this? They're going here to blow up the operation. You have a third party coming in to do warfare. This is a free for all. And just as the military is trying to do DEI to take away Medal of Honor winners, to take away the contributions of African Americans within the military, I understand you wouldn't have won World War I or World War II without us. Matter of fact, they didn't win Vietnam because honestly, they really didn't have our support. They're trying to do Vietnam in the middle of all of the racial animosity that they were creating. And the racial animosity that they were creating was in direct response to our participation in World War I and World War II. And as we were coming home, the veterans were coming home and they're saying, look, the way we were treated with what? Equality and respect and or semblance, not really all, but you know, a finite, but it was a semblance. And a lot of our black men and black women that served in World War II, because a lot of our black women that served in World War II served with the very first iteration of the military industrial complex. I am a third generation of that. On my mom's side, my grandfather and my grandmother. Grandfather served in World War II, and my grandmother served as a seamstress in South Philly. Putting together parachutes and other military articles. And then that carried on over to my mother's generation, that carried on over to my generation. Same with my grandfather on my dad's side. Everybody's had at one point in time some family members that have served in the United States military. And now you understand that that was a level of disrespect because why? Because it's not the fact that I'm going to tell you that I don't care about you, but now I'm going to tell you how much I don't care about you when we literally have been their political, diplomatic, social, emblematic, psychological, and physical human shield. And at this point in time, we're not doing it anymore. See, we understand, most should understand what's happening in this. Nobody would have even understood or could even suspect or could even smell that there's a setup of brewing and the trap is Ukraine. And because the US is so greedy, because that's what it is, they're going to fall right into the trap, and that's what they've done. And now they're going to say, hey, look, they're going to show the whole world. Look from the global south side, look from the western side. It's not us, it's not you all, it's them. And everybody has a target. You want to know why we don't have world peace? It's them. You want to know why all this stuff is happening? It's them. You want to know, and they can't even see it coming. They can't see it coming. See, I knew back at least 7, 8 years ago that France was already done with us. And now it's interesting that now the UK is done with us too. Either bend the knee and resubmit. Because why? Because you need to reaffirm to military, or excuse me, to European powers. Because you're getting a bit too big for your britches. It was all fine and dandy. We let you operate from afar, but now we gotta will you in. And if you don't do it voluntarily, well, now we're gonna come and do it militaristically. Do you not all see Jeremiah 50:51 set up? And now that's literally the protest. The protest isn't for black folks, African Americans, people of African descent. The protest is for us to be used again because they're losing their power. And when our voice isn't used, their power fades. And as their power fades, understand this is bigger than just a protest. This was to try to show the rest of the world that they still are in control of us. And you have to understand this is a spiritual apparatus. Don't think that you just have this protest by whatever group or organization just come out of the blue. It's two wings on the same bird. It's the bird trying to see, okay, do we now negatively influence them and do we positively influence, right? Because the key word is still influence. And now their influence is literally done. And now it's going to be basically codified because why? There has to be a date for their time, for their altar. There has to be a ceremony because they will be gathering in heart, in unison, and they are going to literally look at a spiritual divorce proceeding occurring with our people not even showing up in the default judgment. But the funny thing is, the judge, Yahuwah, has already given us everything that we wanted and asked for and more. I don't even know if we truly understand what's actually happening within the next week or so. Because do you understand? We made the contract with our mouths. We made the contract with our spirits and our hearts that we've broken this contract with them. A contract that was literally unrighteous, wicked, and demonic to begin with. And this is what we have. So, family, um, that's all I have today. Sorry for such a short program, but yeah, I need to get going. Thank you all for your support of Q2UA. Excuse me. Um, with that, most high willing, I'll be back on Monday for Q2A special report, and we'll see what happens from there. So with that, family, I gotta get rolling. All right, shalom, everyone.